Thank you very much, David. And ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you for joining us. If I can just begin by echoing Reverend James's words and offer my heartfelt condolences to the Labour MP, Jo Cox, to her friends and family for the tragic loss today. It really is sad to see someone who lived their life, dedicated their life to public service and community service to meet their end in such a horrific way. Since we last gathered here in this church a year and 3 months ago at our last public meeting, and over a year and a half since I launched this campaign, my might hasn't a lot happened with Trent Park. If visually on the grounds things might not have appeared to have changed that much, let me tell you that the atmosphere could not be more different and the outlook more positive. In the next few minutes, I'll be outlining the journey we have taken in seeking to secure a better future for Trent Park, touching on the achievements and setbacks we have faced, and highlighting the current state of affairs, and explaining why I feel a cautious sense of optimism about the next era of Trent Park's long and fascinating history. We have this evening a panel of speakers that will highlight the site's history and the importance of the potential of the site as a national attraction of international significance. At this stage, I want to also express how grateful I am to all of you for attending this evening, to our hosts, Reverend James and Christchurch, for having us, and to our speakers for the presentations I'll be delivering. And also to thank the countless people who have offered invaluable support to this campaign. If I was to mention all of you by name, there'll be no time for any other speakers this evening, so please forgive me. But I do want to give a particular shout out to those who have helped organise this evening's event, to Eric Dukes and Lee Tarrant from Scooch Media for very kindly agreeing to professionally film tonight without charge, so we can share this evening's proceedings with those who are unable to attend. To my godmother Mary, who is taking photos, again without charge, unfortunately, and all others, you know who you are, so thank you very much. When we last stood here in March 2015, the 50-acre Greenbelt site at the heart of Trent Country Park, the former home of the Bevans, the founders of this church, the pre-war luxury pad of 20 socialites, Sir Philip Sassoon, the World War II intelligence gathering prisoner of war camp, the post-war teacher training college, and most recently, the site of Middlesex University faced a fate of neglect and decay. The mansion and grounds were owned by an entity on the other side of the world, the owners of which were as elusive as the security personnel on site were hostile to the enormous public interest the estate commanded. The Liston mansion was structurally vulnerable after years of unattended subsidence to the terrace, and the local authority, Enfield Council, was unengaged and seemingly disinterested about its future. Indeed, the path we embarked on in the immediate weeks and months after our last meeting here was seemingly full of pitfalls and setbacks that threatened to derail our efforts. Our application to register the mansion as an asset of community value, which was filed by Peter Gibbs and the Friends of Trent Park and Christchurch Cockfosters, where we are today, it was submitted to Enfield Council on the 3rd of March last year, and if granted, it would have enabled the community, in the form of a charitable trust or otherwise, to acquire the site and return it to its former glory for the public benefit. It was, however, rejected by the council on the very last day of the 8-week statutory period that the council had to reply, with a pitiful and legally unsound one-paragraph explanation. That day was an unfortunate day for Trent Park, to say the least. It was the 29th of April, the same day that another great country house, Clarendon Park in Surrey, was ravaged by fire. This was the same house that contained much of the pre-war furniture from Trent Park that was gifted to the National Trust by Philip Sassoon's cousin in 1969 and used to furnish Clarendon. Watching the news that night and seeing this great building engulfed in an inferno, with the ink on the council's letter of rejection of community status barely dry, it's fair to say that all hope seemed lost. But once the dust had settled, and in the same way the National Trust chose to rebuild Clarendon Park, we resolved to continue our fight for the protection and enhancement of Trent Park for the public benefit, and here we are today. Indeed, despite this apparent setbacks, our efforts last year did bear some considerable fruit. We succeeded in ensuring that English Heritage made the structural repairs of the at-risk mansion a top national priority, and they forced Enfield Council to finally issue a much-belated notice of works to seek urgent repairs to the terrace, which I'm pleased to say they have since been completed thanks to Berkeley Homes. The petition we launched against the council, received cross-party support at a motion I presented in the council chamber at the end of March last year, and the ownership of the site was transferred from the invisible Malaysian University, who bought it from Middlesex, to the highly visible Berkeley Homes in September of last year. Moreover, we have succeeded in raising the profile of Trent Park, the historical profile of the site, which 1 million people already visit a year, to the extent that if you now do a Google search, you'll be confronted with pages and pages of news articles and references to its extraordinary history, something which 2 years ago would have been like looking for a needle in a haystack. In our petition to Berkeley Homes, which has generated nearly 5,000 signatures online and in written form, we have requested that they secure permanent public access to the grounds, carry out full restoration of all heritage structures and features, and ensure any new development is of the highest quality, befitting the conservation area status of the site. And I'm pleased to say that in relation to these points, Berkeley's emerging proposals for the redevelopment of Trent Park seem to be on track to deliver these. However, when it comes to the other demands of the petition, that the mansion house and adjacent swimming pool retains a community use, and that Berkeley facilitate the establishment of a museum across at least the ground floor and basement of the mansion and possibly beyond, we still have some ground to cover. At this stage, I point out that Trent Park was left by the Sassoons to the nation after the war to be used in perpetuity as an educational site. With Middlesex University's departure, the council prepared a planning statement which reaffirmed the same, and all but ruled out substantial redevelopment, residential development on site. Berkeley Homes purchased the site last year with knowledge of this, and with knowledge of the site's tremendous value to the local community and its historical value, thanks in part to the efforts of my colleagues on the campaign. With this context in mind, however, Berkeley have purchased the site with the view to develop it primarily for housing, which on the basis that they will provide the much-needed investment to restore the heritage features to their former glory, removing them from the at-risk register, and providing that they ensure public and educational use to continue in some form, is not in itself a bad thing, and I actually welcome Berkeley's involvement. Berkeley have a good reputation as a conscientious heritage developer, having taken on numerous heritage schemes and developed them to a very high standard. What is concerning to us, however, at present, is that Berkeley, I understand, are currently proposing close to 50,000 square metres of residential development on site, and are currently only willing to provide 500 square metres of educational, museum, or community use, just a pitiful 1% of the total. It is our view, of course, that that is unacceptable, for the reasons subsequent speakers will elaborate on tonight, and Berkeley will have an opportunity in a moment to address this. We sincerely hope that by the time Berkeley submit a planning application, which they have indicated will be in September, we will have reached an agreement with Berkeley Homes that proposes the development on site that satisfied all parties and adequately continues educational legacy. And I, for one, will do my utmost to ensure that the constructive spirit of discussions and negotiations continues. Our campaign for a museum, as you all know, has gained some serious traction, with recent coverage on BBC Radio 4, online, 6 o'clock news, the Evening Standard, Jewish Chronicle, local papers like the Enfield Independent, Enfield and Barnet Advertiser, and beyond. The public support, thanks to all of you here tonight, and indeed from across the world, has been truly overwhelming, and I'm extremely grateful for it. As you have also seen, we have received endorsements from leading public figures, including Sir David Jason, leading figures in the military and intelligence community, World War II veterans, and together with Fritz Lustig, I welcome Ron Goldstein here this evening, another veteran, a 92-year-old World War II veteran. I'm very pleased he got in touch with me and decided to come tonight. And many others, leading historians, politicians, and the list is growing almost daily. We have assembled a team comprised of leading historians, an accomplished heritage architect, leading construction barrister, financiers, museum experts, and others to construct our case for a museum, showing how it can be fully funded and thrive as a local attraction, and to ensure we can negotiate and deliver a sustainable future that we can all be proud of. I'm also pleased to announce that the former Lord Mayor of the City of London, Sir Michael Bear, is helping lead our advisory board. Sir Michael has had a very successful career in the construction industry and has a very intimate understanding of the planning process. And like almost everyone we have approached to support our efforts, he is 100% committed to helping us deliver our aims. He does send his apologies for not being here this evening. He had a long-standing engagement with the Chancellor of the Exchequer at Mansion House, with a fair enough excuse. However, he asked me to convey his best wishes and look forward to joining us at our next public event. It's also worth pointing out at this stage that this campaign has been run entirely voluntarily, driven solely by the passion of our supporters and advisors to secure a vision we'll be outlining this evening. But the question some of you might be asking is why? Why all the effort? What's it all for, and what's it going to achieve? Well, For me, establishing a museum and learning centre at Trent Park to primarily celebrate its role in World War II, but also highlight its fascinating pre-war history, is about more than just continuing the educational legacy of the estate. It's about ensuring that future generations of school children and the public at large, near and far, can learn about the enormous sacrifices war entails and be inspired by the extraordinary ingenuity that the intelligence operation at Trent Park involved. It's about putting this borough on the map for all the right reasons and giving the people of Enfield, Barnet and beyond an enormous sense of pride about their local heritage. It's about ensuring that the memory of those who served at Trent Park and sister sites, people like Fritz Lustig here tonight, is never forgotten, that their service to this country is honoured and recognised. And it's about showing, in the words of one of the most famous visitors of Trent Park, Sir Winston Churchill, that when a fight is a good and a noble one, victory, in spite of all terror, however long and hard the road may be, is something that must always be pursued. This campaign will continue for as long as it takes, and I sincerely hope we can rely on your continued support. Thank you very much.